This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. With me, I'm honoured to say I've got Hall of Famer Ray Mancini. You are here in London. The actual only interview we've done on IFL before was on Zoom.
Yes.
During
yes.
lockdown,
yeah,
about 40 minutes.
You reminded me of that, yes.
Yeah, that was a good chat, but always better to chat in person. So just to tell the viewers actually what you're doing in the UK, Ray.
Well, I'm here for my friend Scott Murray's Bar Sport Premier Suite in Cannock, Birmingham. I won't do the accent again. In Cannock, in Birmingham. This Thursday night, it's a dinner called Italian night, and I'll be doing it with Joe Calzaghe, one of the UK's greatest champions, and one of my favorite fighters to watch. So I'm looking so forward to meeting him. And I'll also be with Steve Bunce and Richie Woodall, and a plethora of other great fighters from the UK through the years. I hope to see my friend George Feeney there, and some people I got a chance to meet. You know, John Conti. Of course, Kenny Buchanan won't be with us, you know, but he's not doing well. But I love Kenny. I love Kenny, and to me, Kenny and Joe are the two greatest fighters you've had from the UK.
Well, you can buy tickets in advance for that.
Yes, and you could go get online at barsportpremiersuite.com. I believe that's it.
Or if you're watching this on Thursday, rock up to Birmingham and get your ticket to the box office.
Or just call. Just find out Bar Sport Premier Suite. Just make the call. To be recognized as a world champion, you want to fight around the world. You know, and so when I fought in Italy, when I fought George Feeney, and he was the European champion. The fight I watched when he beat Ray Catus, you know, for the European championship. And I looked, I said, man, I know I'm in for a headache because George Feeney could fight. You know, as you see over here, he's a hard man. You know, I knew he was going to give me heck, but it was everything, you know, and everything and more. But it was a good fight. It was a good fight, and won a 10-round decision over him. And but I wanted to come back. You know, I always want to come back. But at that time, in the early '80s, the big money was in the States, and the big money was the casinos. See, now with pay-per-view, you don't have to fight at casinos. You could fight anywhere. You could be, you know, Youngstown, Ohio. You could be in Chicago. Or you could be fight at Birmingham or wherever, and fight those fights because pay-per-view is they rely more on the customers who are buying it, as opposed to the site fees. Back then, the casinos paid big site fees. Now it's more of the pay-per-view. So yeah, I wish I would have.
Yeah, is that maybe one regret you never actually got to box here?
Yeah, well, absolutely. There's no dispute because they were great fans. Oh, look, I know watching them. You know, people from the UK are some of the greatest sports fans. You see what they did at Wembley Stadium. You've seen those fights. You know, when not only now when you see Tyson Fury fight there or Anthony Joshua fought there, but even before when you had the fighters through the years. Or look at Joe Calzaghe in Cardiff, Wales. Come on, man, you can't. You know, the only guy doing that now in the States is probably Canelo. Fighting, you know, go down in Texas and stuff. He can fill a 60,000-foot stadium in Canelo, and in Texas and maybe Las Vegas.
Mm. Well, yeah, I think even Americans admit, a lot of Americans, that the UK fans are some of the best boxing fans.
By far. Look, I remember when they came over to see Barry McGuigan fight, when he came to the States, when Ricky Hatton came over and fight in Vegas, you know, all the great fans coming over. I mean, look, I love that. You got passionate fans here. It's a wonderful thing to see. You know, elsewhere, especially you got to watch this one of the football games, not soccer, football games. When you watch, you know, the champions, you see Liverpool play Arsenal or something like that. You know, I'm learning the names. My son's a big football fan, and he knows them all. So, but when you see it, you see the passion. Right? You see that, and that's what I think we have that for American football. Probably that's about the closest. You know, but I wish we had more for that for boxing.
Well, I was going to start off with your career and looking back, but we're on this topic now. I was going to address this anyway. So we're talking about how passionate the fans are here, and boxing is really thriving here. Underneath football, I'd say it's up there as one of the most popular sports. In the US, I'd say that is definitely not the case.
Not anymore.
It's probably top 10, just about, if not just outside of that. So how can that change, Ray?
Network television. We've talked about earlier. We were talking about the only way boxing is going to get into the forefront of the public is network television being about free television, not pay-per-view television, not cable television. When I fought, I was exposed to over 60 million people domestically. They had accessibility. I'm not saying 60 million people always watch me, but had accessibility to 60 million homes, over 100 million worldwide. That's why when I came after one time, I went to Italy, and go see my where my heritage was from Sicily. My family's from Sicily, and I went there. We were in Milan and we were in Rome. The people they treat me like a king. I was like, wow, I never experienced that before because you don't realize the power of television, the exposure it gives you. See, so now if you have a pay-per-view fight and they say if a 2% buy rate is considered a success, I think that's like five or 600,000 people. Because I think they said there's 30 million homes capable of pay-per-view or something like that. So a 2% buy rate is maybe 500,000, 600,000 homes. That's a success. So the visibility factor, the recognizability factor is much less. You get paid a lot more. Okay, I get it. So people say, do you wish you were fighting now or then? I said, well, if I could get paid according to the people I put in the seats and the ratings I did, yeah. But I would never change it for the amount of people that I got exposed to at that time. Over 60 million domestic, over 100 million people worldwide. That's incredible. Never happened again.
Unfortunately, what you're saying, I don't really see that changing. We've seen Fox, Showtime, ESPN do more pay-per-views than I can remember in American boxing history.
And they're not pay-per-view fights. See, because you just said it. First of all, Fox is a network, right? But they got back into it 2019. I worked for them the first year. We did 26 shows. And they let us know that the shows that are going to bring, out of the red into the black, making profit is going to be the pay-per-view fights. So they did 4 of that year. The following year they did 5. That's scheduled for 5. And because that's the big, but the thing is, if you have pay-per-view fights, great. But make sure the pay-per-view fighters. See, 2019, Errol Spence and Sean Porter. Well, that's a pay-per-view fight. Yeah, guys on a climb. Deontay Wilder fighting somebody was his pay-per-view fight. Even Luis Ortiz. I wouldn't have been my choice for opponent, but okay. But after that, they're putting in guys like that, Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios, good fighters. I enjoy watching both of them, but they're not pay-per-view. They have to build to that. Because because you had a title, and you think that, and Al Heyman says he's going to give you a pay-per-view fight, he just throws it on. That's not a pay-per-view fight. Come on, man. So that's the problem. They're just putting in, and they're charging a lot more. There's no Leonard Durans. There's no Leonard Hearns. There's no Holmes Cooney. None of those fights anymore. So the biggest pay-per-view out there now that hasn't happened, I don't know if it ever will, is what? Spence Crawford. Everyone wants to see that. Should have happened. Should happen for it. But now it hasn't. It's so I don't know if it will.
What have you made of DAZN's entry into the market in the US?
I think it's great. They put on some good shows. I got DAZN the first year. They started off good. I think again, like most, they're filling slots with some fights that, over here, fighters here from the UK that I'm not familiar with. But so I get it. It's because it's it's a UK network, right? But I think Eddie Hearn did a good job, man. I think the zone's good. Good for the sport. Good for all sports because they have other sports not only boxing. But I think it's good. Yeah, gotta have that. Gotta have it.
Given that it's very unlikely we're going to go back to a situation where we have network television pushing boxing, what would your advice be to American fighters, or fighters across the world really, in how to become a pay-per-view star?
Well, you just said it. The only way you become it is visibility. And the only way you get to have visibility is to travel, fight in other places outside of the States. Muhammad Ali was a true world champion because he fought everybody all over the world. He traveled. He did the world tours in Germany, in Hong Kong, in Japan, in Italy, in France. He did that. Not only in the States. You ain't gonna ever see that happen again. So that's the only way you do it. You got to be recognized by other people from around the world by traveling those countries, or just travel anywhere else outside of Vegas, please, or New York. Just travel to places like Pittsburgh or Cleveland, or try Philadelphia. Where the real fight fans, man. Go take the fights there.
Well, you certainly became a recognisable name, and you had that association with being a TV fighter. But as you pointed out earlier in a separate interview, that it's good to be recognisable, good to be accessible, but you still have to be a good fighter and keep winning.
You got to be a winning fighter. Yeah, what does it mean? There's a lot of guys fought on television. They weren't winning fighters, so nobody recognizes them or remembers them. I like to think, I had a story. Yeah, my manager knew how to tell us, push the story. The network knew how to tell the story, but I still had to do the fighting. So if I'm a losing fighter, there's no story. There's not, don't mean nothing. So, and then I think at that time it was different because my people from the city of Youngstown, my city of Youngstown was economically we were the most depressed we've ever been. Over 100 years, we were 28% unemployment at that time. So they needed something to hold on to, look forward to. I was that guy, so it could have been anybody at the time. It happened to be me. And I think my style of fighting is very emblematic of the city. Take some shots to give some shots, keep moving forward, and try to, out tough the guy, throw more punches than you do, and at the end I'm still standing. So I think that's the thing why people recognize, we have the same back home, Youngstown tough. A little different. It's a little different than most.
Before we discuss highlights of your career in winning the WBA lightweight title and being inducted into the Hall of Fame, you went through a tough situation when you fought South Korean challenger Koo Kim, who, because of that fight, 15-round fights, eventually, I know it was years after, but it was because of that event that 15-rounders turned into 12-rounders. And the tragedies he went through and also his mum went through. How was that? Obviously, he was the one suffering with it, but as someone who inflicted that on him, how was that for you, Ray?
Oh, no, first of all, look, I had to go through a lot. Look, people always say, how'd you get through that time, dark period of your life? I said, through the power of prayer, my faith. My faith in Christ is the only thing that got me through that. And then, and that's why I wanted to get back in the ring right away. I'm one of these people, look, I fought 3 weeks after my brother died. People say, that was the hardest thing for my blood. My opponent passed. But, and I had to go through a lot of soul searching if I even wanted to be in there again. Because here's what people don't understand. I felt a lot of guilt about that. Of course I did. But the thing that bothered me the most is, why him and not me? Because the type of fight it was a brutal fight. It wasn't one way. It wasn't like I was overwhelming him and he was beating, We were both. It was a brutal toe-to-toe fight, and it took us battered each other. And who's to say? And it could have been me. Who's to say it couldn't be me next time? That bothered me more than anything. And so before I decided to get back in there, I had to decide whether I was willing to go through that. And that's when I had power of prayer. Like I said, my prayers. And then eventually, when I realized I wanted to move on, people say, well, will he still fight the same? Well, I only knew how to fight one way. So I had just, like I said, say my prayers and move forward. I had, at that time, I've talked to a lot of people. One of the people closest to me was my old high school teacher and became one of my dearest and closest friends, Father Tim O'Neill, who just recently passed in Youngstown. And, I used to talk to him, going through that soul searching and talk to him a lot. And he'd say to me, Ray, if you're asking me, I want to see you fight again. He said, I think God wants to see you fight again because God gave you a gift. And he said, I think by you not fighting, you're denying these people that gift. He said, you're an inspiration to people of Youngstown. And I think God puts you in a position to be that inspiration for them. And if you don't fight, you're taking away that inspiration from these people. They need something to hold on to. You're that guy. He says, good things happen to bad people. I mean, bad things happen to good people. He said, and you're a good guy. You're a good person, he said. So he said, trust your faith, trust in your belief. And he said, and try to be at peace with it. But if you don't think you can go in and fight with the same tenacity, the same aggression, then don't do it. Because then you're going to get hurt. And I realized that, and after I came to the conclusion that I still wanted to do it. Look, I just won the title. I thought I had the opportunity to gain my security, my financial security. I still wanted to be the best champion I could be, defend it, So I do want to clarify. If I said that wrong, again, to go in there, bad things happen to good people. So he said, and so once you recognize, that's it. Come to that realization, say your prayer, and just move forward. So that's what I chose to do.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty on that situation. what was a prouder moment, lifting that WBA crown or
Absolutely.
Hall of Fame?
I'm going to give you all three, Mike. 'Cause people always say this. Absolutely. Number one, winning the world title for my father. My lifelong dream, everything I dreamed. And I thought after the Guaya loss that I had, never get that dream, that opportunity again to realize that dream. So that was my greatest moment, is to realize that dream for my father and for myself. Don't get me wrong. But when I say my father, everyone says, you're a fighter because you're your father. I say yes and no. Yes, I wanted to be my father. I wanted to be him he was everything I wanted to be as a man, as a fighter, as a father, everything I wanted to be. But he's the one who tried to talk me out of it in the worst way. Because he said, Raymond, it was depression. I had to fight. I had to eat. I had to. You don't have to, because I had academic as well as athletic scholarships to go to college. I had a professional baseball offer, to play professional baseball. So I had other opportunities. He wanted me to pursue those opportunities. But I said, no, I want to win that title for you. So what's he going to say? Number two was defending it. My first title defense in Warren, Ohio, which is the next town over from next time. My first title defense in front of 20,000 people. At the height of our economic depression, over 28% unemployment. People were coming. People were cashing in their welfare checks, their unemployment checks to come to my fight. So defending it in front of those people was one of the greatest. And third, defending in Madison Square. My third title defense, September 15th, 1983, Madison Square Garden. For every young fighter dream, for every young baseball player, you dream of playing at Yankee Stadium. Oh. For every young fighter, you dream of fighting at the Garden. That's the Mecca.
Yeah. Well, that is some career. Obviously, we could go on and on about it, but yeah, well summed up in those three highlights. Ray, just moving on to currency in the boxing. It's just a random question, but who do you rate as the best heavyweight of all time?
All time? I think Muhammad Ali. I think Joe Louis is number 2, and Rocky Marciano number 3. I think Jack Dempsey number 4, and Larry Holmes number 5.
And how do you think some of the modern greats, i.e., kind of Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, Tyson Fury today, would compete with those guys that you just mentioned?
Well, first of all, you understand fighters are bigger now, bigger, stronger, faster, better athletes. I don't know if we're better fighters though. I don't think we're better fighters because, again, a lot of those guys fought in the 30s, 20s, 30s. We were depression days. When you're fighting because you got to eat, I'll bite your nose off for $1.25. But when you fight these guys now, we're making such big money. Hey, young man, will you keep it off? Will you keep it down over there? I think nowadays, the fighters of that era, of turn of the century, during the Depression era, when Joe Louis was fighting, they needed to eat. They were just trying to, get by. Now, these guys living in luxury. Where's the hunger at? Where's the hunger? See, fighters come from, boxing traditionally, from the 20s, it was the Jewish fighters, the 30s was the Irish fighters, 40s was the Italian fighters, now it's the black and Hispanic fighters. Boxing traditionally is a sport of the poor. Economic need. When you're making millions and millions of dollars, how hungry can you be? So I'm drawing a crowd here. You can hear them in the background. But I just think, I think nowadays it's a whole different. People fight for different reasons. They fight to gain more wealth. They fight to keep the luxury cars in their driveway. To fly on luxury planes, not to eat. It's a different mentality. So better athletes now, but I think better fighters before.
Okay, I hear your answer. Let me ask you about a massive heavyweight fight coming up in this country, about 3 or 4 weeks away. At Wembley Stadium, Fury defends his title against Dillian Whyte. How do you see that matchup?
Well, first of all, Tyson Fury is a unique character. He's 6'9", 290, but he moves. He got great feet. That's his key. His his movement gives guys problems. But he's a big, strong guy, and he hits you with the right hand and he lays on you. So he wears you down physically too. Plus he talks the game, so he tries to get into their head mentally. But I get a kick out of him. I do. He's entertaining as hell. But I just think his movement is the biggest asset. He has great movement. I don't know enough about Dillian Whyte, to be honest with you. I don't know enough about him. But I've read things before, and big, strong guy, and I mean, he could fight some. So it should be interesting. Be interesting. That's the thing about it. Again, we were talking earlier. What's boxing need? Personalities. Tyson Fury is the biggest personality out there, physically and figuratively and literally. And I think he brings entertainment to it, and he talks a good fight, and this should be a good one.
Just a couple of more before we close off. Any advice to Anthony Joshua ahead of his rematch with Alexander Usyk?
You got to change. Change the game plan a little bit, because Usyk could fight. Usyk got high boxing IQ. He had a great amateur career. Great boxing pedigree. He could fight, and he's a southpaw. Learn how to fight a southpaw. From what I saw, he did not know how to fight a southpaw. It's a disciplined fight. You got to fight him totally different than you fight a traditional orthodox fighter, and he didn't do that. I like Anthony Joshua. When they were talking about years ago, Joshua fighting Fury, I picked Joshua to win, because Joshua, they're both same, tall, both tall guys, ain't much different in height, and Fury comes with these wide punch stuff. And Joshua is traditional. He's a better straight down the middle guy. He's more of a better stylist, more of a traditional stylist. I thought he beat him, but it's just he wasn't able to. These other fighters, Andrew Ruiz beat him. Andrew Ruiz beat him, but he came back and won that. But when he beat Ruiz, he changed the game plan. He moved. He didn't do nothing. When he fought Ruiz the second time, that was a case where in America we say one guy did nothing and the other guy did less. So, but he got the title back. So I'd hope he'd come back to fighting the way he used to, because he was enjoyable to watch before. So I hope he goes back to that.
My last question: anyone from 175 pounds down, can anyone in world boxing right now be Canelo Alvarez?
Now that's interesting. I think Bivol is going to be. I like Bivol. I'm picking Bivol. Only because I was.
Wow, really?
Because he's a real light heavyweight who can fight. He ain't, he can fight this guy. Now, people say, oh, Canelo knows how to pick him. No, he's fighting top guys out there. I think, for me, though, the one guy that's going to give him the problem, Canelo, the biggest problem, is David Benavidez. I'd pick Benavidez over Canelo, because Benavidez is a young guy, hand speed, and can punch like a son of a gun. And he can move. Canelo's always had a problem with guys who can move. Now, you see these guys he's fighting, big, strong guys, but they don't move. Bivol can move a little bit, too. So I think Bivol is going to be different than, Kovalev. When he beat Kovalev, I was surprised. But Kovalev obviously was shot. He's a shot fighter. And because the way he went down. So when you go down like that, they call it going down in sections. He went down, he felt like a sack of rice. He just went down. And so that's over years of accumulation. Bivol could fight, man. He's a big, strong guy. So that's going to be interesting. I'm anxious to see this fight. I'm anxious to see Canelo fight. But no, I have more admiration for Canelo than anybody, because he's challenging greatness. He's challenging himself. There's nobody doing what he's doing. Nobody challenges greatness anymore. Nobody goes out there to see if I can take the next level and go outside their weight class. Like this guy. This guy's, what he's doing is incredible. So I have such much admiration for him. I've become a big fan. I wasn't sold years earlier. I didn't think he beat Golovkin earlier, the first fight. I don't think anybody. Second fight, I still thought he lost. He was closer, but I thought he lost. But they should have ran it back a third time right away. But now they're talking about he gets by Bivol. He's going to go Golovkin again. Well, Golovkin hasn't been fighting regularly. Canelo has. I don't think Golovkin can beat him now. No. He's older. He ain't fought much. And the way Canelo's going, he's just walking through people. He's mowing them down left and right. So what he's doing is tremendous. It's the best. He reminds me of an old throwback fighter that could have fought during any generation. Certain guys are generational. Could fight at any time period. Canelo's one of those guys.
I hear what you're saying. Boom Boom, thank you very much for your time
on
IFL TV. Enjoy the rest of your time in London, and then good luck with your event with Joe Calzaghe in Birmingham.
Yes, can I talk? Yes, real fast. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. If I didn't, let me repeat.
Mention it again.
Bar Sport Premier Suite in Cannock. You can get tickets. Call in Birmingham. Call Bar Sport Premier Suite, or you go online too. Check it up. Bar Sport Premier Suite www. Right? Okay. All right. And I'll be there again with Joe Calzaghe, Steve Bunce, Richie Woodall, and a plethora of other dignitaries from the English boxing world.
Well, have a great evening there, and hopefully see you back in the UK soon as well.
God
All right.
willing. God willing. Thank you.